Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, my name is Ioannis Panagiotou, and I am colonel of the Greek army and consultant cardiac surgeon at the military hospital of Athens. It is a privilege to be seated between two distinguished senior perfusionists. Left-hand side is Mrs. Jorva Anna Angeliki. She is a senior perfusionist at Henry Dunant Hospital Center of Athens, and alongside George Kagelaris, who is senior perfusionist in the military hospital of Athens. We work together. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the educational seminars in extracorporeal circulation. This is the third seminar of this period, and it is accredited with 2 points from the EBCP. Today, the lesson is dedicated to a topic of significant importance, the work of colleagues in low-income countries. Today, we will have the opportunity to hear first-hand experiences, best practices, and the reality faced by those who work in hospitals operating in such environments. This session will remind us that cardiac surgery is not only about technology, it is teamwork, training, organization, and access to care. I wish you an engaging session. Anna, you have the floor.
Good evening, everybody, dear colleagues. It's my honor and my pleasure to be here with you to share this very interesting session because it breaks all the limits. It's not like a very common session. The topics are very interesting and they are coming all around the world. So it is really a great honor for me here to introduce the first speaker who comes from Ukraine. This is Stefan Maruniak. He's going to speak about the transplantations in Ukraine. Dr. Maruniak Stefan, he's a chief of Department of Kidney Transplants and Hemodialysis, associate professor, Department of Anesthesiology and Intensive Care, Kyiv, Ukraine. Welcome, and it's our pleasure and honor for having you here.
Good evening, dear colleague. It's an honor to speak at third educational seminar in extracorporeal circulation. Today, I would like to share the Ukraine experience of perfusion in extreme situation and under limited resource. Over the past 4 years, our team have been working in healthcare system affected by war, with disrupted supply chain, damaged infrastructure, power outages, and constant security risk. Yet, despite these challenges, we continue to perform complex cardiac surgery, ECMO support, heart transplantation. This presentation is not only about technology. Yes, it's about adoption, decision-making under pressure, teamwork, and resilience. Thank you for the opportunity to share our experience. On the left, you see AI-generated image of wartime perfusionist. On the right, a real one. Imagine choosing between two ECMO machines. One can't run during blackout due to battery failure, and the other has only a single disposable set remaining. These are the types of decisions we have had to make every day. To give some context, this is a map of the Kyiv region on March 2, 2022. Russian forces were approaching the capital, and cities like Bucha and Irpin were under attack. Today, also Kyiv is no longer on the front line. We still experience frequent missile and drone strikes. During the war day, we perform surgery. At night, we hide from drones and missiles. Sometimes the attacks last throughout the night. Over 4 years, Ukraine's healthcare system has been under systemic attack. There have been more than 1,300 attacked, damaging, or destroyed hospitals and clinics. We have lost more than 300 healthcare workers, and more than 300 have been injured. On this map, you don't just see dots. Each one represents destroyed operating room, interrupted treatment, and patient who did not receive care in time. On July 8, 2024, Russia attacked Ukraine's largest children's hospital in Kyiv with 2 ballistic missiles. The strike severely damaged several departments, including the ICU with ECMO beds, one of our country's main ECMO centers. But despite all these changes, cardiac surgery in Ukraine never stopped. In 2022, at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, we observed a significant decrease in surgical volume. However, already in 2023, activity not only recovered but exceeded pre-war levels. In 2024-2025, the number remained stable, close to 2,000 cardiopulmonary bypass procedures per year in our hospital. This is likely due to closure of several centers near the front lines and return of many Ukrainian refugees from the European Union. Since the start of the war, we have performed about 200 ECMO cases at our center. This reflects not only increased demand due to war-related trauma, cardiogenic shock, and severe respiratory failure, but also growing experience, team coordination, and program maturity. To address patient access to extracorporeal support modalities during wartime, we conducted the HEART-UA survey across Ukraine. A total of 22 hospitals responded, 15 centers provide extracorporeal support like ECMO, 16 provide CRRT, and 19 provide intermittent hemodialysis. The map illustrated the geographic distribution of participant centers, including both ELSA and non-ELSA institutions. The bar chart compares the number of ECMO devices available before the full-scale Russian invasion and at the time of the survey, highlighting change in device availability and resource redistribution during the war. This is an example of ECMO use in trauma patients during the war. 23-year-old man escaped a fire caused by kamikaze drone by jumping from the 4th floor. He sustained inhalation injury, lung contusion, and spine fracture. Initially stable, his respiratory status deteriorated within 12 hours, requiring intubation. Despite maximum ventilation, he developed severe refractory hypoxemia. He was referred on ECMO to our center via femoral cannulation. Due to bleeding risk, anticoagulation was withheld for 4 days. The patient was decannulated on day 7, liberated from mechanical ventilation on day 12, and transferred back to the reference hospital on day 14. In resource-limited settings, we simplify the system to reduce priming volume, tubing length, and overall complexity. The compact setup allows faster deployment, easier transport, and reduced blood-surface interaction. This approach is particularly useful in emergency situations when we don't have available ECMO devices. Even with a simplified circuit, we maintain adequate flow, gas exchange while ensuring patient safety. In many cases, patients with severe trauma or cardiopulmonary failure are stabilized in frontline facilities and then transferred to our center on ECMO. Transport requires compact circuit, secure cannulation, continuous monitoring, and highly coordinated multidisciplinary team. These transfers are often performed under challenging conditions, including long distance and ongoing security risk. The quality of the roads we have to travel on is often very poor, which adds additional level of risk during ECMO transport. Nevertheless, this is an example of fully supported critical ill patient. Here we combine multiple extracorporeal therapies simultaneously, via ECMO for cardiopulmonary bypass, intra-aortic balloon pump for left ventricle lowering, renal replacement therapy for renal failure, and cell saver for blood management. In 2019, Thanks to the pivotal changes in transplantation law, Ukraine achieved significant milestone with transplants from the donor with neurological determination of death. Despite the Russian invasion and under condition of limited resource, we have made remarkable strides in heart transplantation during this period. The sound in the background is the kamikaze drones descending toward its target. The most our heart procurements, just like missile attacks, happen at night. In this video, you can see under which circumstances our team transporting a donor heart during one of these massive attacks. This heart was for a 12-year-old girl. This slide demonstrates the geography of our donor heart procurement during the war. Despite active hostilities and long distance, we continue nationwide retrievals. We primarily use temperature-controlled transport for donor heart preservation. In our experience, the long and recorded duration of cold myocardial ischemia was more than 350 minutes. To preserve the heart, we use specially designed cooling chambers that maintain the required temperature during transport. The temperature is carefully regulated and the organs is monitored throughout the journey to minimize ischemic damage. Due to limited device availability and logistical constraints, our mechanical circulatory support option has been severely restricted. Over the past 5 years, we have been able to perform only one ventricular assist device implantation. That patient was a 12-year-old girl with dilated cardiomyopathy and advanced heart failure. Under these circumstances, VA ECMO serve as primary bridge to heart transplantation. The main challenge, however, was the left ventricle distension and pulmonary edema. To prevent left ventricle distension, in some cases, we perform left ventricle unloading through right subclavian cannulas. This strategy allowed to perform some kind of hemodynamic stabilization. Due to inability to adequately unload the left side of the heart on VA ECMO, we opted for biventricular support using two centrifugal ECMO pumps to assist both the right and left ventricle. After a week of waiting, we received a response from a donor center located over 400 kilometers away, confirmed the availability of potential donor. Unfortunately, it was not possible to transport such critical patient to the donor center, so we used our cooling chamber for heart transportation. In this case, the ischemic time for the donor heart was 335 minutes. On postoperative day 3, the patient developed hemorrhagic stroke. He underwent partial amputation of the distal phalanges of toes, but he remained in the ICU for 23 days and was discharged after 41 days, following successful neurological rehabilitation. In some cases, to reduce left ventricle distension, pigtails catheter was inserted throughout the introducer and connected to the ECMO circuit for active unloading. You can see on the slide. In our setting, due to absence of DCD regulation, we do not perform DCD. Therefore, we applied NRP in donor with neurological determination of death who require high-dose inotropic support. Cannulation was performed via median sternotomy, right atrium for venous drainage, and ascending aorta for atrial inflow, with carotid ligation to prevent cerebral perfusion. NRP donor precondition was performed in 12 cases. Recipient outcomes were favorable, with 1 year survival reached 75%. Also, during the war, civilian cardiac surgery center became referral hubs for patients who survived initial resuscitation after penetrated and fragment cardiac injuries. Between 2022 and 2025, we treated 133 patients with combat-related cardiac trauma. 69 underwent surgery for cardiac arrest, forest body removal. In 25 cases, the forest body was located inside the heart. So we saw that multimodal imaging, individualized use of cardiopulmonary bypass, magnet-assisted extraction, and use of hybrid operation room are key components for favorable outcomes. So, as I was saying, as civilian hospital, we have one more reason to use extracorporeal technology. It's combat injury, especially penetrated heart injury with fragment removal. In some cases, to remove fragments from the heart, we use cardiopulmonary bypass. In some cases, primate Harlan machine was used to secure off pump removal of fragments from the heart. In this case, the fragments was removed from the left ventricle with help of special magnets. Blackout in the operation room during cardiac surgery have become real challenges during the war. There are not short interruptions. Sometimes they occur during cardiopulmonary bypass while the heart is arrested and the patient is fully dependent on extracorporeal circulation. At such moments, we rely entirely on backup generators, battery-powered monitors, perfusion consoles, and rapid team coordination. Every member of team knows their role, from secure ventilation to CPB flow to maintenance, sterility, and communication. Operating under this condition requires not only technical preparation, but also mental readiness. During one of the recent blackouts, we had 3 patients simultaneously supported on ECMO in the ICU. At the moment, all of them were fully dependent on extracorporeal circulation. Unfortunately, due to sub-zero temperature, the generator fuel had frozen, and we were unable to switch to backup power immediately. In these critical minutes, we relied just on battery power consoles and monitor while the technical team worked to restore generator function. In this case, the donor was located 600 kilometers away. Due to severe weather condition, we decided not to risk prolonged organ transport. Instead, we transferred the recipient to the donor hospital. The transplantation was performed successfully. After extubation and stabilization, the recipient was transferred back to our center. However, while the heart team was returned, missile attack began, resulting in a blackout. Because of power outage, elevators were not functioning. The recipient had to be carried on the stretcher to the 4th floor ICU. Despite the circumstances, the patient remained stable and post-operative recovery continued without major complication. Finally, I want to thank our incredible perfusion team. Since the beginning of the war, they have worked through the missile strikes and constant danger. I'm proud to be a part of such team. Thank you for your attention.
Dr. Maruniak, we are very impressed about this presentation and basically that you have to deal with all these difficulties in order to operate and take care of these patients. You know, it was really impressive. And you transferred us to that environment, which is really very movable to us. I just have the question because we are living in countries that we have peace and we have really problem to get all the disposables. And I'm just wondering, how do you get all these disposables under these difficult circumstances?
To be honest, in different ways, mostly from humanitarian aid, some disposable we received from the government as a state institution. We have fully government support, and but it's little, to be honest, because the priority of government now is war and to protect ourselves from invasion.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We have now to the doctor. Is Dr. Avxenios Kalangos here? So he's going to make some comments. Is he connected? Okay, so we are honored to have Dr. Avxenios Kalangos, who's the director of the Congenital Heart Disease Cardiac Surgery Clinic, Euroclinic Hospital of Athens. Dr. Kalagos, are you connected? Can you hear us?
Μ' ακούτε?
Στα ελληνικά. Ναι, σας ακούμε.
Μ' ακούτε?
Ακούσατε την ομιλία του Dr. Marouniak? Ωραία, σας βλέπουμε κιόλας τώρα. Εσείς μας ακούτε? Μπορούμε να δούμε τι γίνεται με τον ήχο? Dr. Kalagos, μας ακούτε?
We face some technical issues. Is there any question from
On the
the
floor.
audience? So we have to wait, Professor
yes.
Kalagos.
Dr. Kalagos? Hello? Maybe in the meantime, we can ask you then. we take advantage of this technical problem. So you mentioned that you use a cold cardioplegia or a preservative in order to preserve the organs, or you use cold technique, right?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So it was at what degrees? Was it at 8? If I saw it
8
well,
degrees.
right?
In fridge, we use 8 degrees.
8 degrees. Yeah. Okay. And you had that results.
Yes.
You preserved the organs like 3 hours, approximately.
The largest was 6.5.
6.5 hours. And is this the only center that you perform transplantations in Ukraine at this moment?
We are the main center that perform.
This is the main center.
Yes, it's the main center.
Okay.
Last year, there were 100 heart transplantation in Ukraine, and we performed 60 of them.
60 transplantations per year, the last year.
Yes, yes.
And if I understood well, there is an increasement, right, of the transplantations. However, you have to face all the war. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. Good for you. Now we may have Dr. Kalagos. Are you online? Can you hear us?
Yes, do you hear me?
Great.
Good evening.
Okay, good evening. Okay, now you can make comments and ask any
Yes.
questions you have for Dr. Marouniak. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Dear Professor Kotoulas and members of the organizing committee, first of all, I would like to congratulate Dr. Stepan Marouniak on this excellent presentation on the impressive work achieved in the field of organ transplantation, particularly in the heart transplant program in Ukraine. I stand before you today to advocate for the expansion and full support of this national transplant program in Ukraine. In fact, in November last year, I had the opportunity to attend Professor Boris Todorov's presentation on the heart transplant program at his institution during the 15th Global Humanitarian Forum, which was held in Bangalore. On that occasion, I share the admiration of all the participants who highly appreciated the setup of this impressive heart transplant program in Ukraine, in a country facing difficult conditions generated by war. We often, as you know, hear statistics about healthcare, but it's rare to see a program that transforms many lives, turning those condemned by a terminal diagnosis of end-stage heart failure into a future full of possibilities. For many, end-stage heart disease is a death sentence. Their hearts can no longer function, leaving them bedridden and in many cases waiting for a miracle. A robust heart transplant program such as that in Ukraine is that miracle. It is the definitive highest level treatment that offers not just survival, but a return to a high quality of life, allowing people to return to work, walk their children down the street, and breathe without fear. This transplant program in Ukraine clearly shows that a single dedicated program can save hundreds of lives, turning patients with no other options into vibrant, active members of the community. It represents the pinnacle of medical collaboration where dedicated surgeons, nurses, and specialists work together to push the boundaries of what is possible. Supporting this program means first providing a tangible solution for many patients, allowing patients to return to normal productive lives, and investing in technology and expertise that place the national Ukrainian medical community at the forefront of cardiac care. Some might ask about the cost or risk of this program, especially under wartime conditions. But I ask, what is the cost of a life? Every heart transplant is a story of hope, a story of a donor's final generous gift and a recipient's new beginning. Thank you for this excellent presentation.
Thank you so much.
And keep going. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Kalagos. And we can continue now. We're going to travel from Kiev to India this time. So we're going to ask Dr. John Tracy, who is clinical perfusion scientist, University Hospitals of Leicester, UK. So can we have Dr. John Tracy, or perfusionist maybe? Yeah. Yes. John Tracy. Second presentation. Are we connected to India? Can we, we're not able to connect? No? Okay, can we connect to the next presenter? Yes, all right. Okay, George, you want to present?
We welcome Maria Teresa Zantala from Manchester. She is a clinical perfusionist. No? Jessica. Jessica Tiblady, welcome to our group.
Thanks.
Jessica is going to talk to us about pediatric cardiac surgery in Pakistan, healing little heart missions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay. I'll just share my screen. I'll just do my presentation now. Where are we? Right. Can everyone see that?
Yes. Yes, go on.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So my name's Jessica. I'm from Manchester Perfusion Practice in the UK, and I'm just going to talk to you about my mission last October in Pakistan. So Pakistan is a map of the region. Faisalabad is the city that we worked in, and that's in the northeastern region of Pakistan, and it's most famous for its clock tower. So I'm not sure if anyone's been to Pakistan, but that's the focal point of the city. We went to the Faisalabad Institute of Cardiology. It's quite a big building. It was opened in 2007, and it's quite well established for all sorts of cardiac procedures and interventional cardiology procedures. So the charity that I went with was Healing Little Hearts, a paediatric charity that provides free cardiac surgery and cardiac catheterizations for children around the world. In 2025, which is when my mission took place, 35 missions were completed that year and 501 operations, which is absolutely amazing. So they do some excellent work. The charity is based in Leicester, actually. Sanjeev Nathwani is the CEO of the charity. So he's a great person to have in Leicester with us. So the team who came along, we have our consultant surgeon from the University Hospital of Leicester, Imran, paediatric cardiac surgeon. We also had Tariq, who was a consultant paediatric cardiologist that came with us. We also had our old colleague, Riz Rahman, that came from all the way from Abu Dhabi to Pakistan, as he now works there, to help us with the interventional side of the mission. And then we had a lovely consultant intensivist, Omar, from Bristol University Hospital, and a nurse, Diana, and a nurse, Baya, both from London hospitals. And then obviously me as well as perfusion help. So after quite a long trip to Pakistan, all of us sort of flew from the UK to Dubai or Abu Dhabi and then to Pakistan. So it was a long journey. We had quite a big MDT meeting on the Sunday to decide what cases we were going to do that week. There was a list of probably 30 to 40 children. We went through them all systematically, what images had been done, what diagnostics had been done, and we narrowed it down to a few different children that were sort of ready to be operated on. We had the local surgeon in at the FIC, Mr. Zaygam Rasul. He sort of led the week that we were there, and also a local cardiologist, Abdul Razak. He was a great help to Riz when Riz came for the procedures for the interventional cardiology later in the week. So day one, we completed a VSD, a coarctation via thoracotomy, which obviously doesn't involve perfusion, and an AVSD. And I've just put the weights of the children just so you can get an idea of the fact that some of these children are operated on maybe past the point that we would do in the UK in terms of their size and age. Day two, we did more complex procedures. We did a TAPVD on a 5.5 kilo baby, another VSD, and then a plication post-selling procedure. Day three, we did a TOF. We did an arch repair, which was on bypass. That was probably one of the more challenging ones, actually. Well, I could touch on that later. And then Riz did 7 cath procedures alongside Abdul. And then day 4, we did PA band, VSD closure, a complete AVSD, and Riz did 10 cath procedures, so he was very busy. Unfortunately, day 5, we were supposed to actually meet the health minister in Lahore, but that got cancelled. So we could have operated on day 5, but we didn't. So we had tours of the city, so you'll be able to see some pictures in a bit. So the local perfusion team is me in purple, and there's quite an extensive team. They're all brilliant and they're all very helpful. They do quite a lot of adult procedures there, and Dr. Zaygam does all the paediatric procedures. So they are sort of touching upon those. And so they needed our help really to try and get the children that they operate now are slightly bigger, and they want to sort of operate on neonatal children. So it was sort of our job to give them our expertise and try to suggest improvements for how they could move forward with operating on smaller children. So these are some images of the equipment that we had. So I was quite surprised the heart-lung machine was fine, actually, a Mackay HL20. I think we saw that in the previous presentation. Used just completely as, a bog standard pump, no bells or whistles on it, even though there's that lovely sort of dashboard with transducers and pressures, and we weren't really using that. We were just using it for the roller pumps that are there. There's an old hemocron device to check the ACT. And then there's a couple of different setups for the perfusion disposables. So the smallest circuit was the Sorin Lilliput circuit, which is in the top right-hand corner. And the slightly bigger children were put on the Trilly Euroset circuit. So nothing too unfamiliar there. And then the bottom right-hand picture shows the setup in theatre. So everything's very similar to the UK. Maybe some things a bit older than others, but not too dissimilar, I would say. So, and some other pictures of some equipment that we were using, the Hemotherm heater cooler. So we were able to warm and cool the patients down as necessary. The picture on the right is, I just love the light box. So normally we're looking at these images of the chest on a computer screen. So I just love the fact that there's still some old school light boxes around as well. When I was there, I sort of went into the adult theatres as well, and the perfusionists that were running the adult surgery were using the SANS 8000, so quite an old machine. You can see from the image that a lot of the pump lids and things are all broken and quite old, but it functions, so that's the main thing. And they also use the Secret blender like they do with the paediatrics for gas flow. This is just a little video of how we primed the arterial line pressure, which is a bit of a crude and rudimentary sort of way of doing it, and not as controlled as we prime our circuits in the UK. So it's only about 2 seconds long. So hopefully you can see it in the middle of the screen, the tubing leading up to the orange connector. And you could just see the column of fluid moving backwards and forwards in line with the systolic and diastolic pressure. So I'll just play that now. So yeah, I was quite surprised to see that that's how you do it there, but maybe I just haven't seen that before. So the pump charts that they use, no surprise, it's obviously paper. Most of the things that we would monitor on our pump charts in the UK also apply here. There were a couple of things that I'm going to mention later that were surprising that they don't actually monitor. And yeah, just some of the sort of the more day-to-day things that they don't do that we would normally do. So I'll touch upon that later. So the problems we face. So the clamps, as a perfusionist, the clamps are one of the most important things that you can use. A lot of the clamps would ping off during the case. You would be trying to feel the heart, and if you're not just holding it, some of them would ping off during the filling of the heart at the end of the case, which is obviously not ideal. At the beginning of cases, the perfusionists wouldn't really test their heat exchanger, which was quite surprising because that's one of the more basic things that we do as perfusion, just to make sure there's no exchange between that. Pump safety, even though obviously there is a heart-lung machine that we recognise, there was no working level alarm, and there was a bubble alarm post-reservoir only. So there was nothing post-oxy, which obviously could have caused, potentially a risk for air going into the patient, but at least there was something. So you just had to keep an eye on your level like a hawk, really. The other thing I noticed, this was the sterility of the theatres. So even lots of the members of staff would come in, clean the theatres. The cleanliness wasn't really an issue, but the fact that doors were just being opened constantly. And so any sort of, I don't think they have air changes either. So that seemed to be a bit of a risk in terms of potential infections of the wound and things like that. So that's something that could be improved upon, just limiting the amount of people walking in and out of theatre and the theatre doors being constantly open. On bypass, I also noticed that they didn't do blood gases as frequently as we would, considering they had no online monitoring or anything like that. Some of them would just do a blood gas at the start of the case and at the end of the case, which that wouldn't be satisfactory for me. So when I was running the bypasses, I would do a lot more gases, like sending people to do that for me because it was out of theatre. When the gases were there, they didn't have a glucose and a lactate reading, which was very surprising. And I also had to keep converting it from TOR to KPA. So that was interesting. I was just getting my phone out, converting that. So yeah, I think that was definitely one of the things I said, that if you're doing neonatal bypass, having those readings is really crucial. So maybe that could be something that they could improve on or try and get funding for in the future. So when we did some of the most of the operations, actually, we used Del Nido cardioplegia, but it wasn't given through a cardioplegia device. It was given through a pressure bag that was just hanging at the top of the table with a direct line into the aortic root. I know this used to be a practice back in the day, but it seemed a very crude way of giving plegia. They mixed the Del Nido constituents with oxygenated blood from the oxygenator. So you'd go on bypass and then they would basically just pump blood into a bag that had all these Del Nido constituents in, and then hang it up and give it that way, which I think potentially could pose a problem if you had, you know, a bit more of a delicate aortic route, or you had some sort of blockage, but you wouldn't really be aware of that because there's no way of testing the pressure for that. So that was one of the problems that I saw. So just continuing on with some problems. The blood was donated from relatives on the day of the procedure, and whole blood was given into the circuit. So as it was, you know, the blood was donated on the day, it's not been subject to any testing or any sort of, you know, anything that would check the blood for, you know, infection and things like that. So I thought that that would pose a risk to patients potentially. So maybe washing the blood or spinning the blood in a cell saver would be the best route for giving red cells to the patient if they need it. The perfusionists, they're obviously mostly adult-based perfusionists, so they were using an adult cardiac index for bypass. I know this is a bit of a controversial subject in terms of what indices to use for neonatal and paediatric perfusion, but in the UK and in the centre that I worked at with paediatrics, we used a bit of a higher index. They used 2.4 and we would use up to 3.5 for a neonate. Obviously, the children we were operating on were a bit bigger this time. They weren't sort of 2-3 kilos. So potentially could lower it, but definitely I would be flowing more than they did routinely in the cases. So even though we had a lot of perfusion help during the mission, it was quite apparent that the language barrier was a problem. So I would sort of explain something and try to be like talk slowly and talk clearly, but there was sort of elements where I knew that they didn't understand what I was saying, which is obviously not their, you know, it's my problem. I can't speak the language that they speak, but so that was a bit of a problem during the week for perfusion. I don't know if any of my other colleagues there found that with anyone else that they came across. And also that there was just a lot of people in theatre at any one time. So it's sort of like too many cooks in the kitchen, and it seemed like it was just too many people in and out, which is what I've touched on before as well. The other thing to highlight, even though they had hemofiltration, a conventional hemofiltration on the circuit set up, modified ultrafiltration wasn't practiced. Usually that goes through a cardioplegia giving device, so I assume that might be why. But that was something that I picked up on, because obviously the benefits of MUF are great for coming once you're off bypass, and the hemodynamic stability of the patient post-operatively. I think the MUF is a great thing to have. One of the other problems when you're filling up, so on the smaller children, there was no separate CVP transducer, so they had to keep flicking from one to the other, which obviously is a bit tricky when you're trying to fill with like 20-30 mils of volume. And you can't really tell unless the surgeon's saying, yes, the heart is full, or no, the heart isn't full. So I found that quite tricky as well when you're coming off bypass. And with the arch case, that was probably one of the most complicated cases we did that week, along with the TAPVD. So obviously with the arch case, we would normally use NIRS. No NIRS there, obviously. So investment in monitoring for those neonatal cases would definitely be something beneficial for the department and something that they could move towards. So my highlights of the trip. So making a difference. So obviously these children are just in such a different sort of state to the children that are in the UK. The NHS is just great, and it picks up on a lot of different congenital disorders quite early. And so obviously making a difference to these children is a massive thing, and, you know, keeping them alive and making a difference that way has just been great. So that's one of my top highlights of the trip. I met some fantastic people. All the local team were so welcoming, so friendly. They couldn't do enough for us whilst we were there. We also had lots of armed protection whilst we were there, following us around the hospital. So that took some getting used to, but obviously our safety was paramount at that point. I really enjoyed helping to teach. Obviously there was the issue with the language barrier, but I think they really did take on board some of the things that I tried to help them with. And yeah, hopefully I've made a little bit of a difference on how they practice going forward. The food, we stayed in a really nice hotel whilst we were there, and the food was incredible. There'll be pictures of some of my meals on the next slide. And it really makes you appreciate what our NHS actually does in the UK and how lucky we are to have the resources at our fingertips. And yes, obviously, financially, it's a big drain on our society, but it's amazing that we can get access to all this healthcare for essentially for free, because it's just amazing. So hopefully that's something that we can hold on to. So this just little slides of all the pictures that I took whilst I was there. Some of the food, some of the people, some of the babies, and it was just such a rewarding trip. We even got to meet the commissioner of Faisalabad, and he gave us like little medals and things. And yeah, it was just fantastic. So if any perfusionists who haven't been anywhere and been on missions before, I'd really urge you to go on them, because they are really, really rewarding. So thank you, and I'd be welcome for any questions.
Thank you very much, Jessica. You have traveled us along with you. I would like to invite Patel Sanjay, Chief Perfusionist, to join our conversation.
Okay.
Oh, hello everybody. Thank you very much for allowing me to comment on this excellent webinar. Jessica, great job. I can understand the little diciness in Faisalabad as far as the security goes, but fantastic work. We know there are lots and lots of places, countries, societies that definitely need the help. And I am really grateful to everybody who is working, decide to go or volunteer to go to places like this. Obviously not as difficult as our Ukraine situation, but of course they have their own challenges as you have faced. I remember going into my first in Tanzania years ago, and we literally had to make the whole OR operation theater from the scratch. We had brought ourselves a few machines. We had a Sarns 5000 at the time. Don't date me. I'm old. But we had that. We had some old heater coolers, and after a week of preparations, we were able to do a few cases there. That was us just trying to help them start the whole program. Recently, a few years ago, I was able to go to India, and it was a little bit better. They had an ongoing program there, just like you had. And the challenges are pretty much the same. The unfamiliar equipment, you're going to have to find stuff yourself sometimes. The blood situation is the same. It's a whole blood from the family. Sometimes you may have to work without the power. That can be a challenge. But on the other hand, if you're able to do this, if you make this, you can make it anywhere. And definitely there is a self-satisfaction factor also. You're always happy after any mission like this. You're going to be much more happy internally. Feel yourself, you have provided your services to people that need it. So definitely, I really applaud people everybody, including the doctors and the surgeons and the anesthesiologists and nurses, and obviously perfusionists, who go to these places where they need it. And I really applaud that. I really appreciate, I can understand the need and the gratitude that we get. So thank you very much. And thank you guys. Thank you. It's a great webinar, and I'm really happy to be part of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Can I have a question? I have a question for Jessica. It was really congratulations, first of all, that you took part in such a great mission, you know. It was a great hand to them. But actually, how many days did it take for you to recover after all the stress? Because
it was just the travel.
Understand the stress that you run through.
It was just the travel. The travel was really far because I flew from London to Dubai, and then I had a really long layover before the flight to Faisalabad. So, and then other people traveled to Lahore. So then they had the flight to Lahore and then 2.5 hour road trip to Faisalabad. So whichever way you did it, it was long. So, but yeah, I don't really feel the jet lag too much. So it's all good.
No, I'm talking about the devices and all the means that you didn't have, you know, in order to do the perfusion job, you know. You didn't have a level alarm, and it was missing a lot of stuff that we used to have in our reality, you know, in everyday life, and it was missing. And I think this is way too much stress because we have the advantage of having all this technology in our hands today. And it should be very stressful for a perfusion who has nothing of this and have to deal and perform cases like in little kids. I think it's amazing, you know, a lot of stress.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite stressful.
You took it as happiness.
Yeah, no, it was. It was challenging.
The good stuff. Okay. And it was the scarf that you were wearing, the ladies there, was part of the scrubs, or it was something, it was just for the picture?
No,
is this the way that you...
No, that I think so. A lot of them are Muslim, so they wear the headscarves instead of really wearing like a hat in theatre. So
in the operating room.
Yeah, they would. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay.
So you know, that kind of thing was maybe a bit lax because obviously in the UK we probably wouldn't allow that. They'd have to have some sort of disposable type hat on as well. But yeah, there was a few people walking around in flip-flops as well, which is quite surprising. But yeah, it was, everyone worked really hard, and yeah, they just do, with how little resources they have, they do such a good job. So yeah, it's just hopefully we can sort of make things better for them and suggest things that they can apply for funding for. So that was the reason we went, really.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have any question from the audience?
I have a question. Jessica, thank you for the clarity you addressed the topic, and congrats on your humanitarian work. I would like to ask you something, or better to comment on the socio-economic status of Pakistan. And what I mean, is there any difference between the number of boys and girls who undergo cardiac operations or those who live in rural or urban regions?
Oh, okay. Well, the cases that we actually got presented on the Sunday, there seemed to be a mixture of boys and girls, to be honest. I didn't see it was all one sex over the other. So I can't really comment on that. But yeah, I would assume that the access for rural areas would be, they would have to make their way to Faisalabad or Lahore for their operation. So I guess if they couldn't have access to that, then they may be waiting a long time to see someone, or get progressively worse and they'll have to travel to see somebody about a certain issue. So yeah, I mean that the FIC is very, very busy centre, so people can get seen, but I think it's quite late for paediatrics especially.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have one more presenter. Yes? Maria Teresa. Okay. And now we have to introduce the next speaker, who's Maria Teresa Intala.
Hi.
Stala.
Jantala, yeah. It's okay.
Okay. She's going to speak about expose her experience from humanitarian missions. And Maria Teresa is a deputy clinical perfusionist scientist, Leicester Royal Infirmary, UK, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. Thank you very much for being here, and we are here to attend for you.
Thank you for having me, and apologies for my attire and the background. So I will begin now. So my name's Maria Teresa, and as I was introduced, I'm the deputy here at the Leicester University of Hospitals for the Children and the Adult Center also. So I'm here to talk to you about the cardiac missions, which I partaked in, a collective missions around different countries across the world, and talk about my growth, the impact, and the challenges I faced. So first of all, we'll look at what are humanitarian missions. So they're healthcare missions in low-resource centers, and they're programs where we have multidisciplinary, international, and local teams, where they support for vulnerable populations, and they focus on care, training, and sustainability. Now, if we look at why, the reason it's important for us to have these missions is because there's about 1% of congenital heart disease affect children in the world. However, they lack the access to timely surgical care, and because obviously bypass itself is a very expensive operation, it's normally not available in local environments. Many also present late with advanced diseases and due to limited resources. Also, which is quite a big impact, is the significant global healthcare inequality that they face. So we will have a look at what mainly is the overall objectives and the impact of missions. So it's to deliver life-saving bypass cardiac surgery, to ensure we train and support local staff, both surgical perfusion and nursing, develop sustainable cardiac services and programs, improve the healthcare access, and also improve protocols and patient safety. So there are lots of benefits of missions, not only to you as an individual going to the centers, but also as the centers receiving you. Why did I choose to participate in this? I wanted to make a meaningful impact, form new relationships, but also develop professionally. It allowed me to be able to be in an environment which I was not familiar with, the equipment I was not familiar with, teams which were not familiar with. It allowed me the ability to develop on my adaptability and versatility, and expose me to a lot of diverse clinical environments. And it's also a very good opportunity to be able to share your skills and knowledges from across with different teams. Now, when you do missions, as my colleague earlier said on her brilliant presentation, Jess, is that you're faced with lots of challenges, and it's kind of defined into three main groups, really. You've got the infrastructure, so you have the equipment, you've got the healthcare structures, the protocols, but also you have a high patient demand versus the limited mission time. So we would end up going on missions for 1 week at a time and try to incorporate as much patients as we can within that time frame. You also have mixed international local teams, so you have cultural and language barriers, which can sometimes cause a problem. It's also a high temporary intense surgical program, and also it's managing ethical and emotional challenges. Now, the main thing for as a perfusionist you come is that your equipment and the technology constraints. You have very limited machines, you have very old machines, some of them I didn't even know exist before I was born. You have lack of redundancy. So the safety measures you have in where we're from, the UK, as backup, you will not have them available. You would have limited monitoring devices. So having a simple gas machine in the UK, which is very standard in every theater, it's very difficult to have in India or in Malaysia where we were. So also they reuse, and extend the use of the consumables. And that can cause a problem in itself. We did have issues where they sterilized the cannula so often that it actually was not durable. It was very flexible, and also one of them actually cracked for the arterial cannula. So these are the things you face. You don't have level sensors, you don't have pressure alarms. So it does have limiting factors, but I think personally it develops you in terms of your vigilance. So you're a little bit more consistent with keeping an eye on things. You're a little bit more prepared for everything that may or may not happen. So with regards to the blood and perfusion challenges, that was a challenge we faced a lot in India, in different actually cities in India, where we had limited blood products and restricted access. Now, which is funny because a lot of people in India were very happy to deliver and go and give a blood transfusion, but it was probably in a hospital 2 cities away. So it took them a while to get, so you had to order it maybe a day or 6 hours before the actual surgery. Also, if you did not have blood, you'd have to use very ultra-conservative strategies, especially for pediatric cases, to ensure you reduce the amount of hemodilution. Now, with language barriers, that's where it caused problems, because I would all ask for a certain item, and they would ask me it's something else. So that would have caused a little problem at times, but it was a very nice learning and development for me and also them, and they were very friendly, which was a nice thing. I think the hardest part for me going on missions was the fact that we couldn't do every single child that we saw. And that was because it was based on the resources that were available. So we balanced the complexity of the situation and also the safety. So our aim was not to go and just perform every surgery that we could do, because we can, but to ensure that when we leave, those children have a better outcome and they have a long expectancy outcome. Therefore, the ethical decisions came into play when the demand exceeded the capacity, which was saddening for us. As I mentioned before, the machines were very different from what we used in the UK and very different from different cities and different countries. So you need to be able to think on your feet. So it allowed me to have rapid decision-making, creative problem-solving, using your initiative, which was an exciting but scary part of the whole process, because you had to modify techniques, but ensure that you still keep a safe practice. Also, it was ensuring that I worked outside of my comfort zone. Missions, for me personally, allowed me to have professional growth and adapt my practice. I was able to increase my adaptability, versatility, flexibility, and I grew in confidence. I grew in independence, and I think after the missions, I had gained a lot more leadership roles, responsibility, and also had a lot more cultural awareness. You know, you were able to identify modify and clean techniques, safe use of limited equipment. And one of the things which are a key part in what I did when I was on missions was developing contingency plans, which also to this day, I still take in play when I'm in theaters here. Now, missions are not only about going overseas to teach the local staff what you know, but it is a two-way learning street. So learning from them, but also sharing your knowledge. You don't just go to missions to ensure that you, for that 1 week or 2, do those surgeries, go home, and then the local staff do not know how to proceed by themselves. It's encouraging for long-term improvement, having mutual respect and collaboration, not replacement of them. It's a joint decision-making, enhancing on their skills, enhancing on your skills as an individual also. This is one of the biggest things and the most impactful for me, is the impact that it has on the children, the families, and the communities. Most of the families and communities who come for these missions or are accessible to these missions are in low-income families. Otherwise, the service will not be available to them, whether it is very far or it's the accessibility to the finance for it, improved access to healthcare, and it's very meaningful for the patients. So I have 2 diagrams of 2 images of our patients here with their parents, and the parents, you could see the relief on their face after their child has had that surgery. Why do missions matter? It's one, professional and personal growth. It's a reminder of the purpose and the values of our profession. It's a sustainable impact. So gratitude for the opportunity to support families and children. As a mother of 2, that really resonated with me. It's a growth in my empathy, your awareness, and your compassion. I think sometimes when we're stuck in theaters in the UK and other European countries, we may tend to sometimes forget those 3 personal compassions. It's also shared learning and collaboration, lasting value beyond the missions. I've made lifelong professional and personal relationships with all the people that I've met during these missions. So my key takeaways will be collaboration improves patient outcomes, training supports sustainable healthcare, overseas missions help reduce the global healthcare inequality. Performing on-pump bypass in low-resource settings requires not just technical skill, but your adaptability, anticipation, and constant risk-benefit assessment. The impact of these images extend far beyond the time spent overseas. It's a time for you to reflect as a person, but also to bring those practices back home that you've learned in terms of your personal growth, your professional development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria Teresa. It was like traveling back in time.
Was that because it didn't work properly?
No, it was very nice.
Okay, thank you.
We'd like to invite Dr. Hassan Moushleh to join our conversation and comment.
Hello.
Hello,
Can you
hi.
hear me? Hi.
Yes,
I really enjoyed your presentation, Maria, because you showed that for self-satisfaction you have achieved many things, that you practice what you was working, you help humanity all over the world, not only in UK, but also in Pakistan or in India. And you said that it is two-way street or mutual benefit. You learned a lot from them, how to work under stressful situations when not everything available, odd situations, high risk, different languages, different culture, people in need, they are desperate for such services. And you learned a lot, not only we, people from the West usually come to the East thinking that they are just want to learn, don't want to teach, but you showed that you also learn. Given that, I have one question for you, but I really enjoyed your presentation because you took us to the situation there that you practiced in. I have one question. Given all the odd things that you see, did you find any difference in the level of practitioners there? And what about the results? Does it impact badly on the results, on the outcome, I mean?
Personally, I would say a lot of them were used to more adult patient sizes. So that may have been the downside of the situation. But in terms of perfusion practice, they were very competent in what they did, especially with the resources they had. Me, if I was in training in the UK and I had those limited resources, I would not be able to do what they did. But having experience and as a qualified perfusion going there and then learning from them, I feel more prepared to adapt to situations here. I think, as you said, it's a two-way learning street because we don't think about troubleshooting as much as we should in UK or developed countries because we have all the safety features that we have. So when you go to these countries, it makes you a bit more vigilant. It makes you a bit more prepared. It you kind of is a, how do you say, stress flight kind of response. You're very proactive on it. I think the downside for such a situation was actually post-operative care on the units mainly, because they were not used to dealing with adults, children, sorry, pediatrics. They were more used to dealing with adults. So it was more about the volumes that they gave to patients on ICU, the dosages and stuff like that. But you did have centers which were fantastic also.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Maria Teresa, congrats and thank you for bringing us not only data but the reality. I have a question for you. It's a bit personal. How has working in diverse health systems changed your own clinical perspective?
So I would admit that I think I was a little bit used to the standard practices and safety, all the, how do you say, the fancy bells of the alarms, the thresholds, you know, everything here in the UK. Working overseas helped me to be able to think. So, like, for example, when I'm here sitting on the pump, I would probably sit down and think, what would I do if something happened or troubleshooting. Whereas before, I'd probably sit down and think, oh, if the alarm rings, then I'll take notice of it. So it made me become a more vigilant practitioner, I would say. It also made me become a lot more compassionate as a person. I think, it becomes a bit repetitive, your job, and you don't see the compassion and the empathy side of it. We tend to see our patients when they're already asleep. So I did a lot more research projects when I came back from missions with regards to pediatrics. So I actually went on the side of actually being consenting patients. So it was a lot more, made me just a bit more, how would you say, empathetic, and a bit more realization that we're not just running a pump. We actually have an actual individual at the end of the pump. So, you have to have empathy. So I treat every patient like it's a family member of mine. I treat them with the respect that I would want for my own family or my own kids. So I treat them with love. I try to do every case that I do with love and respect with it. And I've learned a lot from overseas. It made me a bit stronger and confident running different cases, and a bit less fearful of when a situation may happen.
Okay, it seems like it was like a big school for you. So it was like a trip that everybody was having benefit.
Yes.
Not even the patients there and the families, but also you. And you can share this experience with us. So it seems like it's like a two-way benefit, which is great. But I was wondering how, because you visited Pakistan and India, right? Was
No,
there
I
any other country?
Sorry, I visited a few different cities in India. I think there was 7 in total, and I visited Malaysia a few times.
7 cities in India. Okay. Did you go in any other country or just
Malaysia.
India? Malaysia. Okay. It was amazing because in India, I know that they are having also perfusion school, and their perfusionists are certified, and I know that they're performing a lot of cardiac cases, but it seems like there is a big gap, obviously, from some people they're having the opportunity to reach big hospital and having a proper treatment, and for cardiac cases, and some other people they don't. And this is that gives us, these thoughts.
Yeah, the
What's
population
going on?
is.
Some countries, there is such a big gap, and I know that because I know a lot of perfusionists, they're they're performing also in Europe, and they have finished a perfusion school in India.
Yeah, we have one of the actual benefits of actually doing one of my first missions to India, and that was in Pune. The perfusionist I worked with when I went on a mission, he's actually qualified in the UK now, which was lovely to see at one of our annual general meetings. So it was fantastic. Going back to your comment about obviously the accessibility for some of the patients, there's such a huge population, and although there's a lot of very good perfusionists in India, and the school is fantastic, they're very skilled and competent, there's such a huge population. So having accessibility to the infrastructure and the finance to be able to go and have these surgeries, it's some families just cannot afford, and the missions are like a lifeline for them to a certain degree. And the resources in certain communities are so low and limited that these children are kind of presented at such late stages that when the mission happens, they become a very high-risk surgery, whereas if they were in the UK or in a European country, they may be diagnosed earlier, and it may be a simple case compared to when they're finally seen.
Okay, great. We really admire all these missions. And I think in Greece, we don't have really much involved to such missions, but it might be a topic that we can discuss, with the surgeons maybe. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions from the audience? Anything else from you?
Thank you very much, Maria Teresa.
Do we have any other presenter? Έχουμε κάτι άλλο? Στη γραμμή. Είναι άρρωστη.
So we have a problem with the fourth presenter. This is the end of the session. I would like to thank all the speakers for the quality and of their presentations and the stimulating discussion they generated. I believe we all leave this session more experienced. Thank you for your presence and see you soon next month. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.